Hi everyone, thank you for joining OT Business webinar, Future Work and Changing Employee Expectations. Just to let everyone know that this session is 45 minutes and there will be a dedicated Q&A at the end. So please submit your questions at the bottom right corner. If you don't manage to answer all your questions, we'll get back to you after the webinar. Today, I'm joined by Ant Morse, Head of Solutions at O2. Ant will take us through the recent findings from the dynamic working research, where we interviewed over 2,000 employees to see what the future work will look like. Ant, over to you.
Thank you, Monica. So, hi everyone, I'm Ant Morse. I'm the Head of Digital Solutions here at O2 Business. Our teams support a range of different solutions from connectivity, security, digital workplace, unified comms and communication as a service, through to more advanced solutions in big data, the Internet of Things, obviously 5G and also IoT LTE. We also have a focus on innovation topics such as AR and VR and support customers with a number of different solutions in more advanced areas such as digital twin and spatial analytics and AI technologies. What we try to do is our experts help our customers with the technologies of today, and then we look at how we can help map that innovation for the future of work. So today I'm going to take you through a presentation, as Monica mentioned, of our findings of the wider topic of the future of work and our considerations for a post-COVID world.
So in the session today, I'm going to take you through reflections of the year, a look back at what has been quite an incredible year for us all. I'm going to look at the realities of now. This is a checkpoint on where we are today. Then we're going to explore the true driving factors of transformation. This is about the societal levers and trends that we see that are likely to reshape the future. I'll then look at some of the statistics and findings of our dynamic workforce survey report, and then we'll look at the key questions and considerations we need to plan, not only to support our people moving forward, but also to plan and prepare our next stage of the future of work. So as we reflect on a year of, as we mentioned, considerable change beyond anything we could have perhaps quite imagined previously, it's probably safe to say that businesses made plans for fire, for flood, but national lockdown was not quite in the plan. And as we now look at some positive reductions in restrictions and a return to some semblance of normality for many, sadly news broadcasts around the world do remind us that we're perhaps not through this challenging time just yet. But as we consider this last year, while life did change in so many ways, overall I feel we coped pretty well. Thanks to technology, we stayed in touch, we stayed connected, and it wasn't just the workforce. The pandemic saw everyone adapt, every generation embrace digital solutions, and we used those technologies to stay in touch with our loved ones and friends. It wasn't just the workforce, and it wasn't just us. We also tested our broadband as we then moved education online and continued homeschooling during the worst of the challenges. And overall, I think it's safe to say we've now formed a new acceptance, a new reality of our situation, that there will be interruptions, things will go wrong, things won't be perfect, but overall we can and we did make it work. However, it's not been without its challenges. As the sale of the business suit plummeted and the dressing gown sale accelerated, it's left us asking now, how do we manage our brands and our presence in this new virtual world? Are we cameras on? Are we cameras off? Do we agree a branded background, or do we share our real environments? And also, how do we manage more challenging conversations? What should be our online etiquettes, the decorum of meetings? Are we raised hands? Are we questions in chat, or do we just speak up? And ultimately, how will we evolve our interactions in a modern world? So, where do we find ourselves today? Well, we've all heard the stats. 2 years of progress in 2 months, that then became 5 years in 5 months. And now as we progress into year 2, we're now of a collective opinion that this is really no longer about temporary change. We are now forming part of a historic transformation. We're making our own mark on our time, I guess, on the industrial and the wider digital revolution. So what next? What will be the driving factors of real change? What do we need to understand more looking ahead? And how do we prepare for this real change? Now, I won't disagree, and with some bias, that technology has obviously played a key role in this. I will, though, say, for me, it's only actually a small part of the true driving force of real change. As mentioned, having the technology has been there, the applications and digital tool set is great, but actually this transformation now is one more of societal transformation. Tech's proved that we can do it. It's proved to all generations that we can work and communicate in different ways. And also it's brought lots of benefits. And it's those benefits that I don't think people are going to be too keen to give up so readily. Our research early last year confirmed that the rebalance of work and home life was appreciated by many, whether this was from having breakfast and dinner with the family every day, or whether it was just gaining that travel time back to catch up on work. Employee surveys suggested this, and many organisations spoke to their employees and really saw that it was a beneficial transformation. And I think now as well, that conversation's progressing, where many individuals and family units have said how we used to work perhaps isn't going to work moving forward. And people are now looking at making some choices around what works for them and what works for their family. And what if we consider the environment? The last year has seen the biggest reduction in carbon ever. This is beyond any time in our history, from previous economic crises or even periods of war. And as the government in the UK sets new and higher, more ambitious targets around carbon reduction, the question is for us is, will we go back to old ways? Will we knowingly not consider travel? Will travel also slip a little out of fashion in younger generations? I think we as UK businesses all have a responsibility to do far more. And at O2, we've set our targets pretty high. We did this before COVID, and this was to become a net zero carbon business by 2025. And to help us achieve that, we've built a carbon calculator. And this allows us to model various different scenarios and keep us on track. And we've actually made this available now to our customers as well. And while the focus is largely around keeping the lights on and working throughout this challenging time, one thing that we need to also focus is, has service slipped to our customers? We're still hearing of call lines that are apologising for delaying answering due to COVID, or that queries are going to take longer to answer due to COVID. Well, why? We're all at home, there's no travel time, we can work a range of hours. Really, service should be amazing, not slipping. And ultimately, we need to consider the new ways customers want to interact with us as well. They want to message more, talk less. They want to use self-service. They want to use biometric security checks and AI to predict some of the queries that they're going to be calling in with. And I guess for us is, how are we evaluating these technologies? How do we look at what they could do for our customers and for our organisations, and help us answer some of the challenges moving forward? So, to better understand the overall trend and the mood of now, we commissioned the Dynamic Workforce Report. This was really looking into how people feel today, what their preferences are moving forward, and what their expectations of work in the future are going to be. And also, really, for us, it's looking at how the patterns and behaviours of these trends and societal shifts are going to shape our organisations moving forward. The report surveyed 2,100 office workers with a mixture of public and private sectors, with employees over 250. And we did this across a range of different industries as well. Now, I'll take you through the findings today, and I'll pull out some of the key points and considerations. So let's have a look at the headlines. Well, no surprise, really, to hear that 61% of people were calling out that remote should be our default. And 32% of people calling out that they never want to return to the office again. But in contrast to this, 28% of people did need an office and would only work for an organisation that could provide one. And I think it is timely to remember that not all individuals have dedicated and suitable spaces at home. There will be distractions, making remote either a challenge or impossible. And location flexibility was a key theme as well, as 76% of people wanted more choice on where they're going to work, which I think is to be expected. And the strongest indicator for me was that around the hours that people work, 85% want work to fit in with their lives, with their commitments as well. We also looked and asked how we're doing so far. Did our people feel supported? We've witnessed some incredible deployments to remote models, and many of those were pretty much done overnight, with some unsung heroes really keeping our businesses online. But how did people feel we'd done? Well, good news is the large majority did feel they'd been supported during pandemic at near 70%. And they'd really appreciated the focus we put not only on enabling them, but also giving them focus a little bit beyond that as well. Things such as wellbeing days, or no Teams Tuesdays, no telephone Wednesdays, or walk-in meetings. We really did, I think, as UK businesses, really try to encourage more of that. Technology, as expected, was a key focus, with some challenge. 42% of people can't access all the systems they need to do their job. We all know that person at home with a poor broadband connection, as we continue to lay cables under every pavement across the land, it seems, at the moment. But what are our key considerations moving forward? How do we manage home internet connectivity challenges? How do we manage the quality of service as employees wrestle for bandwidth with children gaming after school, or other people streaming media in the house? We found a third of people actually still need better equipment. What does our device refresh plans look like? How are we going to better equip our people? I'll cover that in a little more detail further on as well. It's safe to say that we perhaps didn't buy and decorate our homes with home working in mind, certainly not to this level. Space is a premium in our homes, and we're now having to adapt this, not only to suit flexible working, but also to consider this is still the family home. And we've seen some truly ingenious home working setups over lockdown, from fold-down desks in spare rooms and hallways, through to a very successful ironing board setup, which I think for me wins the award. But the long-term question now is how do we manage and address the DSE considerations? Not only from a home working environment, but also we're likely to see the increase in shared office locations and desk-to-rent models as well. So how do we consider it across all three different areas of the hybrid working? And also as well, what about the peripherals and the accessories? These little additions make a big difference to the setup of home working, whether it be noise cancelling headphones or dedicated speakers or high definition webcams, or even the USB coffee cup warmer, which I think is a personal favourite for many. And also, if we're providing this stuff, how do we measure the return of providing this equipment? Also, how do we decide who gets what? Will we supply? Will we provide an allowance instead for more choice? And ultimately, there has to be a limit on what we provide. And also, not everyone will want everything that we provide. But either way, there was a very strong call out, with 48% of people feeling that they'd be better and more productive if they were better equipped. So now I want to move into the people preferences and the future of work. I want to take a look at where people want to work, how they want to work, and ultimately when they want to work, and also as well what they expect from their employers. So firstly, we looked at where people want to work, and no surprise, as mentioned earlier, location was a hot topic. And if we consider our property estate, 76% of people looking for that flexibility moving forward, there's clearly an opportunity there. And with 88% of people who previously worked in the office now dropping down to an expected 24%, what does the 64% drop look like in terms of our property estates, with thoughts to potential savings longer term? Many organisations with some level of remote working pre-COVID did find that actually it's becoming more popular. Desk utilisation was down, and I think many measured it at around 50%, and that often includes the coats and bags on chairs as people camp out and then go and disappear into meeting rooms or wander around in the coffee area all day. But key to this, before we serve any notices on leases, I think, is to understand how people want to work and what access they might need moving forward. I'll cover this in a little more detail shortly as well. The report also gave us more insight into the hours that people want to work as well, with 85% wanting a degree of flexibility, as we looked at in the headlines earlier. And if we think to our own workforce, we know who's in the 5 a.m. club that send emails first light, and we know who our night owls are, who fill up our inboxes late at night. And if we look at that knowledge coupled with this research, it calls out a clear opportunity for me here. Can we now move from the 9 to 5 model? Ultimately, people want the flexibility. They clearly naturally work the hours that suit them anyway. And we also know that our customers want more flexibility and better service regardless of the hour. So is this the chance to introduce more shift patterns, suiting both our people and our customers? Also as well, another area is, what about the army of talent that is out there currently that can't join the workforce because their lifestyle or challenges don't fit the 9 to 5? And that might be due to childcare, family commitments, or people looking at reduced hours into early retirement. Skills are already scarce in many industries, and for me, I think this is a great opportunity to address this. And the question is, how far do we go? Well, I think we'll all agree we've been ultra efficient with our time in lockdown, with no commute and the ability to work when it suits us, and get things done far quicker. And I think it's probably safe to say that many of us hit our contracted hours well ahead of the closing bell on Friday. Does this now allow us to consider a 4-day week or shorter days? I share here some statistics from the Henley Business School survey called For Better or Worse, which was run in July 2019. And there's some fairly obvious and expected numbers here. 78% of people enjoying that permanent 3-day week, and I'm sure would get the vote of many. But also the reduced sickness, improved productivity, and the increased ability to retain and attract talent. Perhaps they're things we shouldn't overlook too quickly. Now, if we look to the tasks and interactions of our more modern and remote world, there's a clear indication that we can do more and should do more online. We've all travelled to that meeting that should have been a call or even better an email, and with wider considerations to the environment and costs as well, really we shouldn't be travelling for some of the basic catch-up meetings. The survey confirmed this. There was a clear mix of opinion in interactions such as training and workshops, and it also interestingly on customer meetings as well, which showed a fairly even split of preference. And 22% of people were keen to carry on their online socials as remote. Now, I'm not sure Christmas parties worked that well this year, but G&T Tuesday seemed to have been a big hit for many organisations as well. We also asked who they felt was responsible for providing some of this equipment as well. Clearly, there was a feeling that the main kit, laptops, phone, should be provided by us, with around half asking us to supply the office furniture as well. And I think most organisations have some degree of remote working and have a means to do this. And the ongoing question around internet connectivity seems to crop up, and a quarter of the respondents expected us to provide this. And again, this is a bigger question. How do we manage it? Is it 2 lines? Is it 1 with some controls? How do we prioritise work over gaming? And should we? Or should it be the other way around? So it's a bigger conversation there, and a few different opinions as we go. And 11% suggested that we should provide company biscuits as well, which I can see for an interesting tender exercise in the making right there. So, armed with the information, the question then falls as to how do we respond? Now, we've touched on a few of the key considerations already, but where's our starting point? The report recommends that we categorise the people into groups, and ultimately the ones you see here, in effect, form the basis of our new dynamic workforce. So we have office cravers, we have mixers who want various different options to work, and then there's the home dwellers as well. So let's look into these in a little more detail. So ultimately we've got 7 personas, and if we delve into these in more detail, 10% of these were the office cravers, and these were people either at the start of their career who were keen to be in the thick of the office environment, or senior roles who were just more comfortable and used to the dynamics of the traditional office. A large percentage of us, 74%, were mixers. These are people who, for whatever reason, and a number of reasons, wanted that flexibility, whether that be home life or just a personal preference. And then we had 16% who really did want work to fit into their life and not the other way around. So for me, this does give us a good benchmark to kind of explore how we might look at our existing roles and how we bring new people into these different personas. And ultimately as well, it will help us decide what equipment each group is going to get. And we need that. We need to have some control, some certainty of cost as well moving forward. The ultimate thing here is, we'll do all we can, but we can't do it all. We can't give, full remote and round the clock access to sites and furniture in both. There has to be a limit. And again, to that point, we need some certainty on it. And we're running a number of workshops with some clients already on this exact topic. And if we stay on the point of location, if only 10% of people want to come back to the office, 74% of people want an office when it suits them, what do we do with our physical spaces? Clearly, a reduction in space is a huge opportunity on the back of this, but how might the sites actually look? Are we going to knock down small meeting rooms and build large collaboration spaces? Will it feel more social and interactive as a result? Will we even take our laptop into the office moving forward, or will we just take ourselves and our phone? Now, I foresee personally that going to the office will become more of an event, more of an experience, more of an interaction than just kind of going up to the daily duties. And if we then think as well to the rooms that we do have, we're going to have to provide access for people who can't work from home, and we'll always have a mix. What is now the best setup for office, for home, and travelling employees? And ultimately, how will they interact? And I think we need to look at what best practice is here. It's more than technology, is this. This is about managing and setting rules and policy and an understanding of how we join those meetings. I do forecast is going to cause some fun and games for lots of people. When we've got people on the move, not muted, is it safe to mute? We've got people not raising hands and shouting out. There's going to be a whole different dynamic, and it's going to be very different to how we find ourselves sat in our homes now. And with thoughts to the advancing technical solutions that will allow us to communicate regardless of our whereabouts, will this give us a chance to explore more innovation? Will our sites now become innovation hubs where we can trial and test new kit and new methods of communication? For me, we'll see a mass of innovation in this area. It will be from innovators, entrepreneurs, the big tech companies. They'll all try to achieve the ultimate in travelling without moving. And if we do think to this more remote workforce, how do we evolve our internal communications? The exec team here at O2 do an amazing job. They provide videos, live presentations, and we've even built a studio set up in our Slough headquarters. Now, they post these videos up on our social media channel, and while it's a shame we can't get together, there's no substitute for that. It's probably as good as it's going to get, and actually it's quite a good experience. I find it works really well. I tend to grab my device, go sit in the lounge with a coffee, and mirror it up to the TV. It gives me a break from the desk, and it's a great way to catch up. I think we're going to see lots more use cases on this overall, and ultimately as well, there is a strong opportunity here. We'll likely see a large number of organisations actually setting virtual responses to bids and tender exercises as the norm, and they'll either do this as a part of their own carbon reduction policies, which is sensible, but it also might just be that they've taken a more remote model, and that their people aren't together. So actually tuning into a presentation is easier than getting everyone together. And ultimately, we need to think about how we actually respond to this. Can we make use of our studio in Slough to actually really film some high quality or live professional responses back to our customers? And I think this will be a differentiator. If we think about those, just the daily challenge of a dog barking, the postman going, somebody not on mute, that's not really going to cut it when we have to, be our best and presenting our best self as well. So this studio will evolve, in my opinion, and give us a lot more opportunity. And ultimately, do we add acting classes to our L&D libraries? It's unsure. Okay, so we've said a number of times it's not just about the tech. As the dynamics in the modern and the future workforce evolve, we too must go with it. We're going to have to evolve our management style to support our people. The question will be is how best do we support our people in this more remote world? What's the right balance of virtual and physical interactions? And how ultimately will we adapt to flex our style based on the different personas? And also as well, how do we challenge this model of measurement, moving from presenteeism to an output metric? And while technology is evolving to address a number of these things, the AI is tipped to take 16% of our standard roles by 2025. Some would suggest that that's lowballed and it's accelerating at this exponential rate and will be far greater. But ultimately, again, how do we evaluate some of these solutions to help manage some of the day-to-day and actually let us get on with managing our people? And I think that's a question for today and for tomorrow as well. So to test this, our survey also explored the wider view. We were finding that 20% of people felt they had missed out on some strong management during lockdown, and 21% of people felt they'd missed out on coaching, and 33% did feel that they were missing out on some skills development. And if we focus on that last point around technology progresses that I mentioned earlier and people looking at progressing their skills development, how do we embrace both? How do we develop our technology to better serve our customers and to help our organisations? But then how do we train our people to work with that technology? Many would suggest that robots will take our jobs. Well, I'm sure in every stage of the previous industrial revolution, machines have taken a number of jobs. But the good news is the trend always continues, that the new technology will need to be built, coded, repaired, serviced. And I think it's a great opportunity of now to use this time to really focus on helping upskill our people. I think for me, transformation, progress is inevitable, but keeping up is going to be a choice. So if we consider our today and we just take a look back over the last 13, 14 months, this has allowed time for reflection and consideration for many people, and I think we've called out a few of those things as we've gone. I mentioned earlier, families are now re-evaluating how they live and how they work, and it's asking the question of will going back work for them? Do we need to make changes? The research called this out. 22% of respondents have applied for new jobs in the last 3 months, and a further 21% would, but were concerned about the wider economy. And if we look at those people looking for new roles, sure, some of it will have been for absolutely the right reasons and unrelated to the present situation. But 26% of them did state that it was down to their company not being able to accommodate their preferences of work-life balance. And stepping back to reflect on a number of points we've covered here, I think, and I've had a wider conversation with many boards during lockdown, and regardless of opinion, if we step back, this calls for me that this is no longer our call. As mentioned, we're of the general acceptance that we're in a period of significant transformation. This now it's a real societal evolution that's driving change and building how the future of work might look. And I think for me, this is the bit that we really do need to focus on getting right. And staying on the people theme for a little longer, as our digital lives evolve, so too will the rise of gig economy and gig working. And it's never far from headlines. But with location barriers removed and those who have the skills knowing their worth, we're likely to see a rise in the contracting and gig model. And this is one more around cloud work, cloud gig working than geographically tethered gig working that I reference here. So as preferences and attitudes change towards work, and those with the skills look to work and choose who they work for, and especially as younger generations have a slightly different view to some of the more traditional models of work, the question now is, how do we prepare and consider the alternative models? What technologies and what platforms are in play? Are we present? Are we evaluating these, or are we even engaged on these as well? And the final point we asked the respondents to consider was this: do you feel your organisation is set up for success in the future of work? Oh, good news, a positive 65% felt their organisation was in good shape, which is a reassuring indicator. But it's also calling out that there will be both opportunity and challenge ahead for us all on this. Are our organisations able to react and adapt? We're seeing significant change, we're forecasting significant change, but do we have the ability and agility to respond faster as the progress of the digital world accelerates? And I guess as this is our time in history, we're making our stamp on the digital revolution or the wider industrial revolution. That finally, will we bring this statement to life, that work, it really does become something you do and not somewhere you go? I thank you for your time today. I hope you found the research and the presentation of interest and of value. And I hope it goes some way in pulling out those key questions and considerations that will help us all plan the next stage of our future of work. Please find here a small sample of some of the key points I've mentioned, along with some others that I feel are the key topics we need to consider. And we'll now move over to Q&A. Thank you again.
I can't hear Monica.
I'm muting myself. That's a famous sentence for this
year. The same of the year, telling you on mute.
Yes. So we have some great questions. Let me read them out to you. So how do you decide which personas get what technology and equipment?
It's a great question, and it's not an easy one. But I think, as I mentioned there, it's important that we get this right. We've got to bring together IT. We've got to bring together HR and operations to really understand what do they do today, what was the previous method of working, how's that going to evolve, and what technology is going to enable that. So it's way beyond just the technology, I think, is the important point I'll stress here. And as mentioned, we are running a number of workshops with customers at the moment to really help define and understand that. I think having the personas really helps us use a template. It gives us something to work from, and I think it's also important to map both the existing roles and new starter roles as well. So yeah, it's a significant piece of work, and we'd be open to helping anybody who's interested in mapping that a little further. We can share some best practice and insight as well. But yeah, it is I think after the well-being of our people, it's probably the most important thing that we need to get right.
Amazing. And someone from the audience is currently looking at hybrid working. What technology culture change do you think is the most key to achieving this?
Absolutely, yeah. It's to get this right. I think it's about having a virtual first environment. That's goes without saying. So that the boundaries of location and various different platforms that people may be dialing in from, whether that's home office or on the move, are critical. Then I think it's about understanding how the management is going to look, how we're going to measure key objectives and performance. It's got to be a two-way measure, I guess. So what works for our people is one thing, but actually we still got a job to do. We've still got things that we need to achieve. So actually providing the technology being the first part, but then ensuring that we've got a mutual understanding of what's required. Really, then work becomes something we do, not somewhere we go. To that statement, it gives us that result.
That actually covers my next question. Have you got any ways that you measure productivity any more than just online logged in? How can we measure output?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a range of technologies out there that can do that and achieve that. And some, I think are essential, whether it's understanding whether an agent is available for a call, so calls can be delivered in that way. Some I find are a little bit more controversial, and I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of some of them, where they're looking at, monitoring more precise activities. I think success in this will be use those services where they're essential, where they need to be in place to, as I say, deliver calls or to see if people are available and sat, ready to take a call. But the rest of it, to that previous point, really needs to be around understanding what the KPIs are. And I think a really good use case that we spoke about with a company board recently was around, if you were to consider a 4-day week, obviously you'd have the full attention of a lot of the workforce. But actually then there'd have to be some agreement as to, well, how do we decide that we are doing 5 days working 4, or that we're being ultra efficient with downtime? And again, that's where that mutual understanding and acceptance and agreement, prior agreement of what good looks like and what those KPI and objectives is key to. I think merging the two is going to be the route to success for sure.
We have really good questions, actually. So I don't know which one to choose, actually. They're all very related. So what are your specific indicators for measuring cultural trends in your organization?
Okay, let's start with that one. So I think changing the culture of this, we've been a remote working business and organisation for many years, and in our industry it is quite commonplace. I think as a result of that, you do build a culture, a slightly different culture as to your approach to work. I think ensuring that the measures are there with understanding of what again, to repeat, apologies, but what good looks like, I think is really important. It's not going to be easy for everyone. Some people are going to see this as a slight challenge. Others will embrace it, and I think again this critical piece which keeps coming back is that management of the balance. Has to be the area we focus on. But I think you're pushing on an open door. The survey suggests that the results are positive and that people are seeing those benefits. And I think most employee surveys were phenomenally strong during the early stage of lockdown. Now, as people are kind of looking at the precise devices they use and finessing their environments and enhancing them, I think that's the opportunity for us next to say, okay, what does good look like on both sides? And then agree in that middle ground. I think the culture will follow, but this has to be led by the exec. This has to be the board have to be leading this and agreeing with it, and leading by example as well.
Really interesting. So the two questions are quite similar. Do you think the world is ready for an output as opposed to our approach to work? And should we be measuring outcomes rather than output?
Yes, I think again it's role specific. I think output should be measured. This will be important for talent retention as well, because super efficient talent won't necessarily feel that their time is the that we're paying for talent, not their time. So I think we should, in many cases, look to move to that output rather than hours. I think that was the question, and I'm in absolute agreement. And as I say, in certain cases as well, particularly as we see the gig economy grow, people, particularly young generations, will make choices who they work for. They will certainly not be looking at an hourly rate. They'll be looking at a particular project, and their value is their skill and knowledge, not how many hours they've put onto something. So, but as I said, it's easy to say that in a particular niche area. It does dilute down slightly, I guess, as an example, across wider functions, but I think it's still a great basis for us to work to. Yeah.
And you mentioned in your research that there's 3 personas. Will O2 be offering, and what is O2 going to be offering for those 3 personas hybrid model?
Sure. Well, I mean, we as mentioned in the introduction there, we have a team of experts. I'm very fortunate to lead some amazing talent and skill within our organisation that look at everything from the solutions we have as today through to innovation, which hasn't is in build. We provide a whole range of support in mapping and understanding what the workforce looks like today, and then it's very much a kind of a manage, optimize, and transform approach as well that helps customers. Not only map the personas, that's more of a workshop. We help with insight really. The next stage then is for organisations to say, well, what do you recommend? And that's where we put the experts into the workshops, and we let them provide suggestions on solutions. We're in a fortunate position that there are many. We can combine expertise from digital workplace through to security, through to more advanced UCC solutions as well. So we provide a whole range. There isn't one fits all, and it's important to not to use that approach. So there's a range, but it really does start with kind of workshopping the idea of what does transformation look like. As I say, there isn't one fits all, so it's important that we understand it fully, and the workshop just allows us to do that.
Great. And unfortunately, we're coming to a close, but I'm just going to ask one more question. During your presentation, you mentioned about carbon calculator. How can we access this? Where can we read it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we could put my details on the closing slide, feel free to drop me an email. We're sharing this with a number of organisations, and we're very proud of it. And it's how we're mapping our own journey to net zero by 2025. And we gladly share it with you. We just need to just take you through how to use it. It's quite straightforward, but just a kind of a 15-minute call just to take you through it. But if you drop me a note, if we can share my details at some point on screen, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, which is Ant Morse, we'd gladly provide that for you. And yes, we'd be really interested to see as well what your own carbon model reduction looks like. It's a hot topic for many at the moment.
Amazing. So 3 minutes to go. I'm wondering if I can have one more question, or if we should come to a close. Shall I do a really short one? And were there differences in views by sector, age, and role?
Yes, a very good question. Yes, there were. Yeah, so we saw particularly in the office cravers that there was a very much in more senior roles very much pull towards office working, and then also in younger roles as well. There was definitely those two groups. I think they only equated to about 10%, but they were particularly keen to work in office, and we found that people, particularly starting families, were very, very keen to be of that mixer role as well. And that made up a huge percentage of the respondents. So yes, there was definitely a clear split by age and role. The survey was mainly desk-based roles, but we also share insight from our wider and early research around more field-based roles as well. And also, it's really important that maybe for a future session, Monica, but there is also an army of workforce out there keeping Britain connected and on the move. That we need to consider about how technology can enable those guys to be super efficient as well.
Amazing. Right, so 1 minute to go. Unfortunately, we have run out of time today, but thank you again for joining the webinar, and I hope you enjoyed it. For those questions that we couldn't answer today, Ant and the team will definitely get back to you individually. And we plan to run a sustainability webinar on 17th of June, so please look out for invites. That's all from me. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and have a lovely rest of the day. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.